Bonjour, good morning everyone. It's time for some P3 stuff, and actually it was already time for some P3 stuff, certainly for most of the year. The reason we didn't do more P3 stuff is twofold. First of all, I didn't want this channel to become a P3 channel, and the second is there were just some things not amazing in Linux land. Let's just check audio. So the issue is that similar to the SG Octane, each time you want to update something, stuff doesn't apply like patches. So why is this an issue as well for both Octane as well as the P3? We have here quite some patches. And in T2, of course, they are here nicely sorted in architecture, PowerPC, 64 packages, package Linux. And these patches are quite some, and these patches we have because we, in this day and age, certainly want to run Linux as game OS, because so running it how Sony intended it back in the day, before they tried to take other OS away from us, because mind you, this is a company P3, we brought it for say Linux stuff, nothing wrong with that. And then Sony just eventually decided a couple of decades ago to brick it overnight for us. So this is here totally legal fair use and everything, and certainly we purchased it for the full price and stuff. Anyway, so of course this is upstream. A decade ago this was upstream. You could take upstream Linux kernel, vanilla, compile it, run it, all was fine. So then later, when Sony took other OS away, people figured out in amazing ways how to run Linux as game OS, because as running as other OS, Linux never had full access rights, so it could, for example, not do all the stuff with the NVIDIA RSX, with the GPU. So when we run as game OS, restoring the functionalities that we gave money 600 euro to use it for here, then some details are different, and this is why we need this handful of patches. And some of them, so actually not all of them are really necessary, but some of them are necessary. One of them is, here's this PS3 storage, just the very first one already, patch 0010, PS3 storage multiple regions patch. And what this is doing is, I can also show this to you, 20, not 20, do I even? 10. So what this is doing when you run in game OS, not only, or as game OS, then it looks to the hypervisor like we are game OS and we get everything. And everything means also more storage regions. So this is why we need to patch this. If we don't patch this, we actually don't even see our Linux SSD storage volume thing there. And what do I even show here? Actually, maybe I should show this also here. And because previously, historically, the hypervisor only exported the Linux partition running in other OS, and now with game OS we get all of them, including the game OS partition, which is quite convenient if you want to access some files there. But this is not even what we want to do. We don't even want to access those files there. We just want to access Linux files. And for this we need to add support here with, this is this region index for all the multiple regions there, I think like 4 or something. And the long story, I tell you this. So the problem with this is, you see what is it doing? It is mostly adding here some for loops. Well, besides this region index, which previously was just always 0 or something of that sort, region flex. Anyway, and what this is doing for the most part is adding here some for loop. Well, although this patch right now is not the most clean, because this is already some reverting of some previous change, and this is why you can ignore all this minuses here, because this is stuff for some other revert. But basically this is here for usually doing here a for loop for all these region indexes, 0 to a number of regions, which maybe was 8 or something, or here it was max number of regions, apparently 8, I guess. And so this is just a couple of for loops. You also see here init. Previously this was just instantiating or creating here one block queue, and here's this block mq init queue thing here. Beside it was even slightly different. But anyway, doesn't matter these details too much. And so you see, instead of creating one queue here, it's for all regions, create here multiple. And the reason I say this is because I could not, since the beginning of this year, I could not even run the latest Linux kernel, because this is unfortunately what really gets a little bit on my nerves, and this is maybe interesting for all of you, not only the PS3 fans, that I really, after 20 years, it really gets on my nerves that they need to refactor everything, refactor and refactor and refactor and refactor and change and change and change more, because why not waste each and everyone's developer's time? So what this has done here, you see 2018, October, soon a year, and convert PS3 disk. Here this is upstream, vanilla upstream, because for some really funny reason, upstream still supports other OS, although Sony deleted it 10 years ago. So if you never applied this firmware, you could still run the official Sony way. It's a pure refactoring of one kernel API to another, namely converting some old block API to some new block multi-queue, or I think at least that is what I thought MQ stands for. Maybe I should actually Google this here live for you. Linux block MQ. At least that would make sense. And simple walkthrough, system issues, and multi-clue mechanics here. Let's see, is here what Thomas Krenn, what? Anyway, so some multi-queue stuff. And the trouble with this is that I don't know, first maybe there is a use case, certainly there are some high performance something where this creates some 1, 2, 3, 4% better performance or something. But what is really annoying for all the external people like me and stuff, and even you see in the background SG Octane. SG Octane we run 4.12, and between each kernel revision there are so many changes, and some news sites like Phoronix always applaud, yeah, stuff is deleted, stuff is refactored, like, but honestly for me it only gets on my nerves, and this is why I'm in the meantime dreaming about my microkernel vaporware. Because on the surface this looks super simple, and they also wonder why do they always need to introduce new APIs and change APIs. On the surface this looks super simple. You see the status change from int to block status t, and you could also argue why a decade or two ago did they had this untyped int status stuff here, but whatever. And yeah, so here not so much changed, just this underscore block and request. All status IO error was removed here, and returning here from 0 to STS IO error, and here also returning, instead of returning 1, returning block status. Okay. Super travel change, you would say nothing to say so much about. Here are some more changes. Of course, again here from void to some, actually returning some status, and also then here just some, instead of block fetch request queue, some request ops. So it looks quite similar. It's doing mostly the same thing. We now have multiple regions, and so this does not translate so directly to the new code, because mostly in the interrupt handler here, PS3 disk interrupt. So previously, so this was just spin log, here's this log, and block and request all, and PS3 disk do request, and that was it. And the change is just here some mild change, but we need to refactor all of this for this for loop for those regions, and that was not entirely trivial here in the interrupt handler, because you really need to study all these fine changes, because if it's not as simple as this 3.5 lines to change, there is even our interrupt handler somewhere here, certainly. Interrupt somewhere like, why don't I see? Oh yeah, right, this is not git change, so this is not so nice. It's a nice change git format where we would have the function name. Where is our interrupt handler? What have I done here? Anyway, the problem with this spin lock thing is that you need to understand the semantics very detailed to make this change, which right now I don't even see due to too many trees in this forest reasons. Maybe it's also too early, or Anyway, because we need to iterate here through all the regions. That must be regions disabled. It should be in here. Is this already with these changes? Because I just rebased this, as you see. Oops. Yeah, this amazing support for mouse wheel. Diffs of diffs is amazing. Init, so this is init probe. What have I done here? Did I merge this totally defect? Anyway, because the thing is that we need to iterate here through all of them, and then you need to understand the very fine semantics. Also, the old code you see here, also this is spin locking here, spin lock, and then running this block multi-queue and request, and then unlock, and then running this block multi-queue run HW queues. And just in between here we need to iterate through all the regions, which right now I didn't even find. And so the problem is I made it some changes, and it was not entirely clear, although I looked this up, wasn't really clear, because first thing, it's not entirely clear, do I need to run this MQN request, maybe only once, but the whole thing is a little bit really tricky and fishy, because this is only having one multi-queue thing, and we have like 8 or 4 to 8 or something, because we have 4 or 8 partitions or regions, and this makes the whole or not something. So yeah, additionally on this, I think there is some new regression, because this did not even boot. So what I've done, why in the beginning of this week, so first of all I delayed this. Initially I actually just reverted this. So at the end of last year, when I was running 420, this already had this change. Someone even was so amazing to rediff this for me, but that was not rediffed correctly. So for example, the next thing is the person who sends this to me, which by the way, thumbs up, is amazing in theory, but it just was buggy and didn't work. So if you, by the way, if you send something, so this wasted more time than it helped me, because I thought, hey, this will probably work, right? If someone sends it to me, it's tested. I even committed this to T2 because I thought, yeah, PS3 not so important. I just committed there, better than nothing. And then I built the next kernel, didn't boot for me anymore. I said, yeah, what the heck is now going on? And it took like really many hours to figure out this patch. Because you also need to have multiple of these text sets, because we create multiple of this block multi-queue text sets. Probably should be in this here, because I've done this, so you see what this code here was doing already before, and other people have done this. So this I've not done this. This were the people who reverse engineered this running in GameOS stuff, and you see this is the old code, and even before this, so this is new. This is a new API change, and even here, the old code, even a decade ago, it is creating multiple of this request queues and multiple of this gendisk things here, with an array of PS disk max num regions. And of course, so the person who rebased this for me didn't do this here for text, and this is for sure why this was crashing, because it was running this create multi-queue stuff init on the same text set variable here. And I think, in my opinion, we most likely need many of them. I say most likely because I still have not tested this. This is what I've done this week, and most of the changes didn't boot, because I think there is even another regression somewhere in the Linux kernel for PowerPC or PS3. So yeah, this was the big issue with what someone sent me already around New Year, really many 7 months ago. And this is why you should share, like, and subscribe those videos, because I definitely need to grow this channel way more if I want to do daily open source maintenance and bug hunting, regression fixing, and all this kind of jazz. And still a little bit surprised that I didn't see this interrupt. Ah, right, this is a diff of a diff, so this is why this diff of the diff only shows block MQ ops region index. Anyway, you get the idea. Slightly wonder if I broke something or not. Anyway, I need to continue testing this because I could turn this on, which is why I have the camera on this side. Also, I wanted to do more amazing stuff, and there you see so many days here already, all my free time of multiple days wasted on this stupid Linux API changes, which really pisses me quite off actually. I wanted to do more amazing stuff because, for example, I wanted to try, I can't capture the output here because it is enabling the hypervisor. Apparently, I didn't know this actually, but even actually was actually not even sure, but maybe. So with other OS back in the day, not sure, but at least when we run in GameOS, the hypervisor leaves HDCP, this high definition content protection crap, enabled. And so I built, was this, I think 13, but if this doesn't boot, then not. Yeah, so this is the kernel I just built this morning. And this finally boots again, but this will not boot anyway, so this will stop in the initRD because I right now don't have this block module because I wanted to rule out whether this multi-queue stuff is crashing or not. Previously I had this compiled into the kernel. Actually I wanted to change this next to have this in the initRD, see if this loads in the initRD. This is why in T2 we have this kernels fully modular, all modules enabled, as many as possible, because even I myself find it annoying. I get here some USB stuff and plug it in, like, yeah, not this because this is binary only shit, but any other, you plug something and it doesn't work, really don't like this. This is why we have like 2000 modules or something. And the other point is, first of all, it keeps the kernel smaller, and second of all, if something crashes, if this is built into the kernel and it crashes, then you do not know whether what it is. If it's a module, then at least the kernel has a chance to come up, already have some debug output, and then when you load the module, then you might get a better oops on the frame buffer or something like of that sort. So yeah, this is the summary of why there has not been more PS3 stuff. Stuff I wanted actually to do is I wanted to try out to turn on to turn off HDCP. I wanted to try to enable hardware cursor, which both of this means calling into the hypervisor. There is some PS3 dev wiki with some HDCP attribute that is not fully documented, but so not sure, it's just saying there's something. Anyway, I wanted to try this out for sure. This will also not work on the first try. I only wanted to give you a short summary, well, short and short, how long? Probably also already 20 minutes or something of that sort, yeah, 19. This is why there has not been more PS3 updates, because I just wasn't in the mood. I knew this will be a pain. I knew this interrupt handler stuff here will not be amazing. It will not just work. It will be a pain for someone. The difference, of course, there are people who memorize and know all the kernel APIs by heart. But even for someone like me who's doing quite a lot of work there, it is a total pain to keep an overview of all of those. So yeah, next I wanted to, so next we need to rebuild the initRD, because right now I don't have this in there, PowerPC 6432. Of course we cross-compile this, otherwise it takes too long. Probably just, probably also modify this here. We don't have block. Maybe I change this to just include all block devices or something, so we just include stuff here with regular pattern, regular expression pattern matching, mkinitRD root here, maybe dot works, don't want to risk dot, and then this was probably, does it just work with root and boot 420. So of course we want the latest and greatest Linux kernel, but I'm already happy when something boots here. And so yeah, so you see this takes so much time, which is why, okay, this works cool. Wasn't sure if I need to specify the symbol file manually or not or something. What I would be looking for is when I really also need to turn off mouse wheel support. This is, yeah, I switched to Tmux. Still need to scroll back, is not escape. Anyway, need to test this next, and I will keep you updated. And there you see so much innovation stopped. Also, imagine how much time is wasted from all the developers constantly API adapting here, refactoring, rebasing to new APIs, because this is not one driver. Certainly they have substituted here. And again, a lot of the stuff is trivial if you don't have like multiple interrupt queue handling something. And yeah, but you need to do all the changes for all the ARM boards, for all the SOX system on chip. So for sure, this commit actually would be interesting to see. This for sure is touching thousands of drivers, I would estimate. Can we click here on something? Probably. Yeah, not on this. Can we just delete this and have this over the whole kernel tree, like patch drivers ID, like something like that? No, did say. Anyway, then it's single commits. Yeah, you see, not only, I wonder if we would have already artificial intelligence, much more amazing kernel. I have the feeling most of the time is spent rediffing, rebasing, reworking APIs, and somehow it doesn't really. You've seen my other video with LVM2, where the LVM2 stuff was also extremely annoying. Thanks for what you do for the PS3 crowd. Yeah, welcome. Again, I wanted to do more stuff. So stuff I want to do next is turn off HDCP, not to copy movies or something, because on Linux right now we have neither Blu-ray decoder, as far as I know, or amazing gaming. I just want to capture here my own frame buffer. By the way, do I still have this running? I have this running. So I can't even, this is also, you see the amazingness for digital content protection stuff. You can't even capture here. You already have an HD professional, well, used third party, not third party, not aftermarket, used stuff from eBay, still expensive enough. Professional gear, $699 original price a decade ago or something. And even with this thing, you can't even capture. So even this thing, although it was expensive, doesn't support HDCP, high definition content protection, which is also slightly hilarious. But maybe probably, and there you see even these companies probably can't support HDCP legally, because otherwise they get sued, even probably violating local laws. I guess there may be even a German law that it's not allowed to circumvent copy protection shit. At least I know, by the way, fun fact, I know from people in Berlin who had companies for audio equipment, and these companies went bankrupt a decade ago, or maybe even 2 decades ago, when the music lobby, even back in the day, 20 years ago, even for digital audio, for a speed, if you know, he is a good number of years older than myself, and was a fun talk. I met him because of the DEX, the digital audio converter integrated circuit there from my own audio board here, and we chatted a little bit. And his company, so he was building professional audio equipment, digital audio stuff, high def stuff and high end stuff, and he sold to even the state radio and state broadcasting stuff here, like NDR, Norddeutscher Rundfunk, and stuff like this, because they just needed digital audio stuff there in their studio, right? And although he sold to this high-end, even state-run organization, broadcasting, TV, radio station and stuff, he closed his company because of this law, like around 2000, 18 years ago, exactly ruling out this: you are not allowed to manufacture tools that are can be used or are intended to circumvent digital right management, digital copy protection shit. So yeah, well done, government, destroying companies that supply your own state-run government broadcasting studio stuff. Of course, he did not even produce tools that were primarily intended to strip copyright, just that in the pure nature of professional coax and optical SPDIF digital audio stuff, like even coming out of the PS3 or Octane or mini disc player of all the stuff on my YouTube channel. It wasn't the primary intent, but just because it allowed to combine this digital signals, and basically he said his tools basically just had to ignore the copyright bit, because most stuff there is just, it's so silly, it's just one bit in the SPDIF protocol, it's just one copyright bit. There are like 2 bits or something, like one bit is a copyright bit set and another bit is generation. So the digital audio recorder stuff like my mini disc player, they increase the generation bit. So like sometimes there was a scheme from Sony and stuff in mini disc players where you were able to make one generational copy or something, but not a second or some bullshit like this. And so yeah, so of course when you have a studio TV radio station and you want to broadcast stuff, you need to broadcast stuff, and not like, hey, you can't broadcast this because there is a copyright bit set, which is of course hilarious. So his tools, his professional audio gear was not even like intended for piracy, but just because it was professional broadcasting gear, it just ignored the copyright bit for obvious studio reasons. So yeah, so well done. Anyway, long story short, more stuff to do. I know RSX, just it is more fun to do. Probably I have it maybe here. Let's see, is it, yeah, it is more fun to do this vintage stuff because it's not crashing as much. So I'm sorry that it's more fun to do. Do we have even the right camera scene? So yeah, sorry that it's more fun to do vintage DOS stuff because the stuff just works and is not hypervisor accepting me on me. But we will continue, it's not forgotten. And now, yeah, the problem is already so many hours spent this week on getting something to boot. And next I have to finish this. And so the problem is also this started to boot again. I still don't know why newer kernels didn't boot. So why is this 420? Because I went back to an older kernel I was already testing with 5.1 and 5.2, but that didn't boot. And now I need to figure out why it's crashing, and I should also, yeah, scroll back somehow. Why is, you know, yeah, you switch to Tmux because the other day it got on my nerves that sometimes screen gets stuck. So I have actually already redefined here some Tmux stuff like prefix Control A and unbind Control B, because why should Tmux be compatible to screen Office? And now I need another coffee. But yeah, so I will probably maybe keep you updated, but the thing is I will maybe continue another hour or two. I could live stream this, but I need to type my password here a couple of times for my public SSH key, and I don't want to type my password here constantly on YouTube, even though it has a SSH key attached to it, but nonetheless. And bit off topic, I tried FreeBSD12 the other day and it booted surprisingly on which FreeBSD on the PS3 or somewhere else. So yeah, this scrollback, you see there's always something we could actually maybe just so we've done the init.rd, let's just do the init.rd again. The other day I need to, let's pipe this into log, and because I need to see if we now have, what root command phone, what the heck, 189, what would that be? Anyway, keep you updated on the P3, so that is cool. So FreeBSD, so you mean, but running another OS++, I guess, or do you run 2. What was it before? When has Sony removed this 3.10? Or what was it? So yeah, block. Let's see if we need PS3 disk. Okay, so now we have PS3 disk in there because I think this was not in there for not P3 disk. Yeah. So I think the API, although it's plus, okay, that is cool. Is that upstream BSD like vanilla, or is it a patch set? And if you are a developer, by the way, are you the one who sent me the rediffed P3 disk stuff that didn't work? And yeah, it would be cool if we could combine here resources more, because on the for rebug, okay. Would be cool if we could combine resources being the structure, so I don't know what structure is going in there. So if I just call this hypervisor AV manager attribute thing, I'm pretty sure it will not just work. And even the HDCP disabling stuff, all unless I find it somewhere in some FreeBSD or something. And then the other thing, so I want hardware cursor also, just although it is, I understand it's a low-hanging fruit, you guys want to see 3D graphics. So for the 3D graphic, I have some ideas because there is this emulator stuff and there is this homebrew library stuff, and it would probably make sense. I'm not sure if the homebrew stuff has enough of the 3D bits in the library, so theoretically we could probably convert the X driver to use a homebrew library, which would mean sharing resources. And this is the same with this vintage stuff here with rendition verity and stuff, that I want to document this in some kind of microkernel driver stuff. In a way, what I said earlier, my goal there on this side would be to write this so that this low-level stuff works like on DOS for demos and games, as well as a serious microkernel. And the same would go for this, because what is a little bit annoying is that the Linux stuff is so Linux API stuff, and that you cannot just easily copy and paste it somewhere. And this is why I would find it, and you see ever-changing APIs, right? So this is why I would find it preferable if there would be some like Rosetta driver code kind of repository where this stuff is more universal without all this preparatory Linux BSD kind of API stuff. Let's see more comments. Yeah, thanks for continuing on this project. I'm always excited to see ours in this video. So, okay, that is amazing. And so, yeah, so low-hanging fruit, I think the hardware cursor. Why do I want this? Because without the hardware cursor stuff, it is a low-hanging fruit, and this is just getting more familiar with this hypervisor stuff. And then, because without the hypervisor, the GPU load is relatively high. You need to copy each time the cursor moves. You need to restore you need to save the area, just like in VGA DOS games. Like, it's of course funny that it's the same in SimCity or Monkey Islands than in software cursor in X Windows, because this you need to always save the area below the cursor and then restore it. So this is why it's a relatively copy paint cursor, restore paint cursor, flickering affair, and it's a low-hanging fruit. I just wanted to do this, and even this means adding quite some infrastructure to the drivers for passing this IOCTLs, adding, and there you see all the, you need to add this to the Linux kernel, you need to access to the X server, and yeah, anyway. And yes, we will do this a little bit quick and dirty, because I'm not in the next weeks or months porting the RSX driver to a kernel mode setting or something of that sort, which we probably should do another month or year. But yeah, the more stable well, besides the latest kernel booting, this is right now the best state I kind of ever had this running in. Sort of, kind of, because back in the day, hardware acceleration was running a little bit better in 2.10 with this hypervisor insecurity, but vulnerability. But yeah, so now I will continue testing all this stuff. And why do I make these videos? I'm also, regardless of the P3, this is the same for other stuff like Sun stuff or the SJ Octane. That stuff is bit rotting, that each time. You see, even with the SGI Octane, I run there 4.12, which is older than the PS3 actually, but I can't even just easily go to 4.13 because the patch set for the SGI is even larger than for the PS3. And with the ever-changing kernel, you see, it's not only affecting the PS3, it's also affecting stuff like the SG Octane, and then you just can't apply all the patches, and you need to, it's enormous work of a whole weekend for the Octane, or even a whole week, and then it doesn't even boot. Even for the PS3, it doesn't just boot. So now I copy this over. Fun fact, we can already tie this up. Just manually tying this up, manually moving this over. But yeah, documenting how much work this really is when people complain, why is it not working here? People break it, people change APIs, and then you need to spend a whole day or a weekend. And yeah, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe, because I would wish I could do this all day, and we are still after 2 years of YouTube enablement, not yet there. I wish we were, but we aren't. Also, maybe really, I know I'm really a little bit begging for advertising money here, but I think the latest YouTube creator changes from this week introduced a new tier for membership for people who would want to subscribe to YouTube for like a couple of dollars a week. Previously, until some days ago, this was 100,000 subscribers, which is totally high, which we probably will not reach in another year or two. Unfortunately, I'm realistic. But I think they changed this now to maybe 30,000 subscribers, which I also wonder, why can YouTube not just say for everyone who is monetized can offer this membership stuff for people who want to donate. Although you can already do this on Patreon, which probably is the more clever thing to do, because on Patreon only a couple of % are going away on this. YouTube, as Google and Apple always take 30%, I think on YouTube membership and super chat donations and stuff, I think like 30% are going away. But nonetheless, a little bit disappointing. So on one thing, amazing that YouTube probably lowered this tiers from 100,000 subscribers to only 30,000, I think. But still, we are far away from this. So this means increasing this 10 times, of course. But yeah, I only say this, share, like, and subscribe, because if you want me to do this each and every day for the PS3, for the SG Octane and stuff, we need more of this. And yeah, next thing probably, and again, if the Linux kernel people would not do all those random changes, I could have already done this HTTP stuff and hardware cursor stuff in RSX. And again, you need to be a little bit clever. This is why I say the RSX super annoying. Why have I not done more progress? Because, as I said, I don't want this a PS3 channel. Second of all, the GPU is throwing an exception, which is not amazing, and then I still don't have code to recover it after the exception when the RSX NVIDIA GPU doesn't like something, some bit or some memory reference, and then it's throwing an exception on us. And for this to work reliably, we need to be able to recover from this exception another day. And yeah, building this YouTube channel up, because I think the YouTube channel is probably more amazing if we do SGI stuff 1 month and PS3 stuff another month. And this just takes time. You see, this is a lot of detective work, and then it is totally not amazing if the Linux kernel people randomly change stuff, and then we need to sit here a weekend to figure out why. Yeah, why this broke. So yeah, I hope I have an update later this weekend. Also, we will have our weekly IT news stuff, but if I get this to work, so first I need to get the latest kernel to work, and then I maybe need to introduce some thoughts of automation to really, maybe I need to configure all of this, because the problem is testing, right? You could say, why do you not always test the latest and greatest kernel? So yeah, first of all, I do not use it each and every day. I already use it a lot, but not each and every day. And then I also have the Octane and the Ultraspark. So maybe the plan going forward, and yes, some things I should have done maybe a decade ago, but we were just too busy with all the other stuff. You can't always do everything immediately, instantly. Because the next automation thing would probably to have this T2's build server configured to automatically build all of the targets like Spark and MIPS and stuff like Octane and P3 and everything, and then have all the machines configured to network boot maybe, and that would probably be the best way, the most automated way, because emulation can only catch so much. Even the PC emulator Voodoo emulation or Verge emulation does not behave as close to the real hardware as I would wish it would, because its emulation is often some shortcut, like the emulation just writes something and it's doing this, and the real hardware has some timing things. So in real hardware you may not be able to write as fast like Verge or Voodoo, and so yeah, emulation. And then we don't even have emulation for the Octane or the PS3. In the game emulation only runs games. The PS3 emulation cannot boot Linux, unfortunately. So yeah, it probably would be the best to have network boot everything and an automated build server to automatically build everything, and then I just need to switch it on, see if it boots, and if it doesn't boot, then the latest kernel is not working. So then I would only once a week, when there is a new major kernel, wait for the build server, everything is built, and well, if it built, it doesn't break in the build already, but then I just switch it on, network boot it, and if it boots, then it works, and if it doesn't boot, then there's a regression. But for all this fun stuff, again, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Now I need a couple of more reboots, a couple of more entering my password. That's why I could live stream it, but with all the password typing, I won't. I already changed my PS3. Fun fact, when I switched this on yesterday, or actually on Monday already, couldn't even remember my root password because I changed the root password from my standard company issued local root password here to something for the YouTube stream like test or password, but maybe it was P3. Anyway, I only tested, I couldn't log in anymore, so I had to reboot with init equals bin bash and change my root password. I tried literally 20 passwords like test and YouTube and password and something, but I probably was P3. How could I? Yeah, no, only now I remember, probably it was P3, damn it. Yeah, I tried 20 passwords, none of them was it, and then I reset. You see, I already changed passwords for YouTube, and then after a couple of months, I don't even remember the password anymore. Disappeared, but I posted it to the stream to where my link is. Anyway, thanks for posting the stream. Again, this I try to make it so that this topic is usable for other things, and although I'm a Linux guy, right? I'm 20-year Linux, and I'm not wanting to say like Linux sucks. It's just like after 20 years, I hope it's understandable, or it's probably natural that it's understandable that it is a little bit annoying that each time I want to do something on the Octane or the P3, something is broken. There is some regression that is a little bit disappointing and annoying after 20 years. But I will probably, of course, continue using Linux and work on this stuff, but it's probably also reasonable to understand why I have this microkernel room. And I think the idea of mine to have this repository of universal drivers, and maybe we even add one day RSX stuff or P3 stuff to it. But in any case, rendition Verite and Voodoo and stuff. And I hope you, probably this is a similar audience who enjoys vintage retro graphic card stuff as well as P3, I would hope. And with that, it's time to make a new coffee and continue testing. We will tune in. It's of course ridiculous that I need to spend my time disabling the HTTP bit in the GPU hypervisor attribute stuff just to be able to, yeah, I only mostly brought this to capture PS3, and then it didn't capture because copy protection nonsense, so yeah, not amazing. And anyway, hope to see you soon. And yeah, also, fun fact, this is also so annoying. Each time, why are the YouTube streams now starting slower and ending more abrupt? Because this, do I have it on stream? I probably have it on stream. This new YouTube beta stuff is a little bit annoying. So you would think all the YouTube web admin stuff is becoming more annoying, more amazing, but it's becoming more annoying. So not only does this stream start slower with this, I usually already, so if I click end stream here, then usually the last 30 seconds are cut. I also wonder what is YouTube thinking, that when you click end stream, then the last 30 seconds are gone. So now I already first stop the stream in OBS, and then I wait 30 seconds, and then I click end stream in the YouTube web management interface. And then even then, sometimes the stream is ending abruptly. So just if in case you wondered why the stream start and end is not always so abrupt, that's like, yeah, don't ask me, ask YouTube. So till next time.